There's an atmosphere of dread and true terror in The Exorcist. It is not in Exorcist 3. There is one scary scene. That's it.
Yeah, we're starting off on a hot take because we are live.
We are live. All right. So Exorcist 3 is.
Well, the skeptics and all the people have a little bit of. Let me do this again.
Oh, it's live, Hal.
Sorry.
Well, it's a beautiful day for an exorcism.
It is.
The blood of the new and everlasting covenant, the mystery of faith.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Any day is, but Exorcist 3 has one
Good
clip,
scare.
one good scare, and that is in the hallway where the nurse is walking. You're down the hallway. Nurse is walking in front of the camera, and someone follows. Her with those large,
Those shears.
yeah, and that is it.
We were watching that and our TV froze at that moment, and you get we didn't even get scared because
Yeah, because the noise and the the fluidity of the shot.
Well, they set it up very, very well, but I'm sorry, that is the only part of that.
Well, first and foremost, I don't want it to go understated. That is one of the best jump scares ever.
It's a very good jump scare.
It's one of the best jump scares ever. The way they set it up is they really took their time with it.
And I think I'd added to it because you're like, something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it just, all of a sudden it does. You know what I mean? You're just waiting, and then it does. So that...
And look, I will... It's not even a concession. It's just an agreement. Even though you aren't... The way that me and you are on the third one, I think, is kind of the way that you two are with the first one, and I'm more the mediator. First one, I think, is a classic. I have come around, I think it's top 10 horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
That's where I stand on it, because, used to work on a stance where it's it's this evil entity versus the girl.
An innocent 12-year-old girl.
And it used to work on that level for me, but I then started to like the priest so much. He's generally one of the most likable characters.
Karis?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a saint because he's a psychiatrist. As a priest, he makes nothing. And they even say in the movie he could be wealthy, and his poor mother, because of that fact, suffers, and he.
Dime, why you do this to me? Please, Dime. I'm afraid.
You're not my mother.
Tremendous guilt because of that. So that's another side to the movie.
And there's a huge kind of thematic element where it's the argument of science versus religion. And he is literally the kind of the moral compass of the audience, I think. Because he says he has started to lose faith in a way, and he's looking at this particular case, and it's making him question the consensus that he's come to, where he's more science-based now after all he's seen. Mm-hmm. And it's actually the fear of evil and seeing true evil is making him a full
justifies your faith.
Yeah. Those elements, to me, on a movie standpoint, not even the fact that it's a thrilling movie, maybe I don't know, a lesser type horror movie that doesn't have as much substance, but it keeps you amped the whole time.
Well, Friday the 13th is like that. It escalates.
Well, I will say,
it starts out kind of, and then it does escalate. So there is I like
the plot to that, though. The story being told. It literally, ironically, it feels like a campfire story being unfolded. Like, you're literally living through the campfire story. It's like, a boy drowned here.
Right.
Then the mom... Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But it's weird that, well, okay, it is the mom in the first one and the only one, and after that, it is Jason. Like in
Yeah.
Friday the 13th 2, Jason, he becomes unkillable, similar to Michael Myers, it's just bizarre after the first one.
You kind of bring up a good point, because that escalation does take place a bit in The Exorcist 3, where and this is what I thought you would like more about the third, is because it starts to take it even further. Because so much is done in the first, and they're trying to, in a myriad of ways, kind of
Surpass it?
Yeah.
They don't, in my opinion. It's George C. Scott is a good actor. He's in the movie.
Is he the detective?
Yes, but his
I
dialogue
loved him.
Is so odd, and his like emotions he displays is so. He's just a bizarre. He's a weird character. I can't identify with him because and I don't know why it was like that. I would think the book written by Blatty, Legion, would have been much better than that. I mean, he talks about a carp in his bathtub, and it's just stupid. It is
That point, all right, like that little monologue or whatever was a little bit weird, but I think it was to show their relationship.
Yeah.
Where they kind of have like these weird inside jokes where they can crack each other up.
I agree. That is definitely what the part, and also maybe to have a little humor in it as well.
It wasn't the most humorous.
Well, no, but it is a horror movie, so you're not going to have laugh out loud moments.
I did think that they had I liked their rapport together.
It was all right. At times it seemed forced to me when they were sitting down eating. I mean, it's a cliche where, the pessimistic detective and the priest, everything turns out all right in the end, and the detective is saying, why would a god do blah, blah, blah. I mean, that has been done many, many times.
Isn't that at the core of... That's like a huge question that everyone asks, though. And
but it's not done well. It's not... there's no depth to it. It's just very, I mean, the characters are one-dimensional. I mean, the priest that gets killed literally has he barely is a character. I mean, he's friends with George C. Scott, but, I mean, he's a priest. That's it. He looks Jewish. Not that matters, but he is a priest. And he's murdered halfway through the movie. Or killed.
Well, he's like a bartering... No, you can say that. We, all religions are equally
despised.
Celebrated, yeah. But I guess before getting too deep into that, let's start with the first one,
okay,
and then we'll
go into
deeper into that. So, you lived through the premiere of this.
Yes.
And I think you said earlier you were in 9th grade when it came out, so you were like right in maybe the target. Was it an R-rated movie?
It is an R-rated movie, yeah.
You were able to see it.
Yeah, because I went with my brother and sister.
Okay.
I never forgave them for that. It was crowded. Everybody wanted to see this movie. It was just it was a phenomenon when it first came out.
Was it like this and basically The Omen were like the big movies that everyone in this horror movies that transcended?
Omen was not as big as The Exorcist. Exorcist was like incredibly popular. Omen was well done, popular as well, but not as big a phenomenon. But The Exorcist was a phenomenon when it came out. R-rated, but viewed by large portions of the population. Good actors, Bernstein, Max von Sydow in there, and
Ellen Burst.
I'm sorry, Ellen Burst. Did I say that? I meant to say that. Which she was a big actress at that time, and
no, I think you did.
Well done. It's just very well done. It's not your typical. Up till that time, horror movies were third-rate movies. They weren't well produced. There was no money put into them.
Max von Sydow, is he in The Seventh Seal? Or am I thinking of someone else?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Like, he wasn't, like, in any Bergman films, was he? I'm gonna look it up.
I know he's a like, and I've said this to you prior. He was 43 years old when he made that movie.
Really?
He's the old priest, and they aged him, and everybody
Well, yeah, he
would
did
never
look-
think that that guy was 43 years old.
He is in The Seventh Seal. And that's, like...
Who else is in that?
The Seventh Seal. Well, it's a very, really, really famous Ingmar Bergman film.
Okay.
Where he plays chess with the devil, or not the devil, Death. He's in a bunch of Bergman films. So
Well, is it biblical? Because that's from
Yeah.
Revelations. All right.
Yeah. It's like, you know, the seven trumpeters trumpeting and... But I did not know that. Didn't know that he was the priest, the other priest who came in.
Oh yeah. I knew him. I just couldn't think of his name.
When you said his name, I'm like, that's like super familiar. But I'm like, because he, you know, Bergman's like Swedish, and he's also Swedish, which you didn't really pick up on that in the movie.
Well, he's Swedish heritage on it. It's not like he's from Sweden.
I think
Side of.
he's spoken of, like, you know, he would do those Swedish films in that dialect, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So
Let's get.
the summary is
But we haven't gotten Chungas.
Chungas.
Chungas's opinion on Exorcist One.
I honestly, I like it. It's just not scary, but for its time, I will have to.
No, I understand it because I mean you saw it 40 years after I saw
Yeah, I was
it.
like 21. I I would grow up with like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
It like
Yeah.
all that, and I thought that was pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
But
There's like there's a good bit of like atmospheric. I love a lot of the details in this film. I thought the makeup was great.
yes, I thought the makeup was really good.
The music is like
I love that. I love
Top
that's Mike
tier.
Oldfield, Tubular Bells. I bought 3 albums in my life, and that was one of them. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells.
it's like it's up there with Carpenter's Halloween, whatever you call that.
Music?
Yeah.
And you did say you liked the voices, right? Was that
Yes.
okay? Or I thought I remembered you saying it.
And I actually thought that put that character over the top.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis.
Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
And it's almost a character in and of itself. And we talked about they found a voice actress who was a recovered alcoholic to do it. In order to do that voice, she had to start smoking again and started drinking again. And that voice is iconic. I've never heard a voice in a horror movie, any type of movie that was that.
Well, and because that it accomplished what they were setting out to do, where it's like, this is how the hell is this coming from a 13-year-old girl?
Yeah.
You know, and then on top of that, like, there was a lot of cool little tidbits to like the demon.
Like, didn't I tell you? I kind of picked up. It might be common knowledge, but when she was speaking backwards, like the demon was, like, he actually said Marin, which is the priest's name.
Who wasn't even called in yet.
Yeah, so like he wasn't called in.
No, he is a priest.
Leo?
Marin! Marin! Give us time.
He was the one.
Oh,
that
that's
got
the old
called.
priest, right?
Yeah, and
I did not know that.
They said Marin in the dialogue when they played it back.
That's a good pickup. I've never... And the movie has those subliminal or incredibly minor aspects of the movie that I don't even know if they've ever said.
Yeah, it's just like kind of there, as though they knew it was gonna be like admired and rewatched and scrubbed over.
Yeah.
Well, we watched the one where they cut some stuff out, right? Like the walking.
Yeah, I think
Wars.
like we didn't see like the whatever you call like the
Spider-
director's
director's
extended
cut.
cut. Yeah, so like you said you didn't see the spider walk, we didn't see it either. But I know I've seen the version that does have
Okay.
that.
I'm
I
not
know
would be
it.
surprised if there was at least 2 versions of that.
Yeah. Well, anytime there's like that huge of a demand, and this one grossed, well, not grossed. No, I think it did gross nearly $500 million, which is just huge for an R-rated movie, huge for a
From
horror movie.
1972. And
Yeah.
horror movie from 1972.
Yeah, and if you're like doing just for inflation, it probably is well over.
Billion.
Yeah. So, anytime there's that type of demand, people want to watch. They're like, I want something. If there's 20 more minutes to watch, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, any part of that movie, there's more that I haven't seen. I want to see that.
Another thing that they did that was like super effective that I really liked was they used like medical procedures as a good way to illustrate some of the suffering going on behalf of the daughter.
That's a really good point, and I think it adds something to the movie that makes it. I don't know, more of just a regular movie, or what adds credence or something.
Realism to it.
Yeah.
Grounds the film.
And it they're putting her almost through human agony to try to figure this out because they just have no idea. And even afterwards, the doctor gives just basically almost was just saying, "Yeah, your daughter's sick." That's he gives some.
We know the
vague-
symptoms. We don't know the diagnosis, essentially.
Yeah.
That was great. A lot of the characters, like, I thought were really good. The director was good. A lot of, like, just the elements. Like, there's these side conversations where, they go over, yeah, we are going to space. They're just, like, side conversations where it's not spelled out, like, hey, this is a detail that we're going to call back to in, like, a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she comes down, she's like, you're going to die up there.
Yeah.
And if you're only kind of watching like,
Well, what they did is real life. People talk a certain way, and a lot of times in movies they don't.
and they really
Everything's geared
captured that
towards
well.
the plot. In real life, it isn't like that.
Uh-huh.
You just have a conversation. Has nothing to do about nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's what good movies do. I believe, and I think they did it in that. And when she says you're going to die up there, to me, it's really just weird and creepy, and and everybody just kind of stops because they're playing on a piano or they're singing
Yeah.
or something. They just stop and look at her.
And that was a scenario we kind of turned to each other and like, if that's your kid,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah.
How do you cover? I mean, the actress does the best job you probably could.
Yeah.
But you immediately put your shoes and you're like, that is the weirdest shit. I don't know if I'm anyone in that audience. I don't know how the hell I react to that.
Right. She's not been feeling well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Ellen Burstyn is amazing in that. I know her from it is that drug movie, Requiem for a Dream. She's the mother in that. She's amazing in that.
Well, she's a very
that-
good actress.
Was that the little kid or mom? The little.
That's
The mom.
That's
The mother in this film, and she's also the older mother in Requiem for a Dream.
Harold, please, not again, the TV.
Mark, come on, Mark. Why do you have to make such a big deal out of this, Ma? You know you'll get the set back in a couple of hours. Why are you gonna make me feel so guilty, Ma?
I really thought the little girl was a great actor. She was probably my favorite.
She's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
She's really good.
That's a typecast thing. She can do one thing. Was great in the movie, but her next movie after, well, other than being Exorcist II, was a movie called Roller Boogie. So you can imagine how.
Did that do well?
No, I mean it was just a horrible
Yeah.
film.
That is so hard to. I mean, is there a person who was within that age range, I mean, like 10 to 16, made it big, and then was able to parlay that.
No, not that I'm aware of.
I don't know either.
I read about the casting for her, and I think one of the reasons, apparently, obviously she had some talent, but the fact that the source material didn't bother her, because she does some stuff,
Yeah.
as you're well aware. So for like a 16-year-old not to be like, traumatized by that, so they had to be very careful how they cast that. They were lucky to find someone that's like, yeah, I don't care. I'll
Well, yeah, and
use a cross for whatever whatever she did.
yeah, and then I don't know about in that time period, but it's like, you might have had to get parental sign off too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, her mother was with her when she,
Yeah.
yeah.
So to get parents too, they're like, yeah, we'll we'll
She can do it. Yeah, she's game.
Let's talk about the opening, because that's so not starkly different, but I want to kind of like try to come up with why is that so, like, why is that needed and what makes it good, because I did think that scene while they were in, I think, Iran
or Iraq?
it was good, and it was really good, and obviously that is the introduction to Sandow. Sidao. Well, did you pronounce it Sidao? Sandow?
Oh, Mexican side.
Sidao.
Yeah.
Sidao.
Oh. Yes.
What is the importance of that, I guess? Is that like the release of the demon
The
Pazuzu?
only thing and I've never read anything. Other than that, I don't know what it means. It adds mood, but it's got to have some part of the movie, and I don't know what it is. But I think that's just the release of that idol, which releases, and I don't know how that idol gets from there to this little girl in DC.
So, and that was a question I came into this viewing with. And I do not think it's the same idol. She would make things with clay.
Okay.
And I think she had seen the demon's form and created it after him.
The little girl?
At least, well, because like
She didn't. I know that she did.
she made the one thing, which was an orange thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure who. Do you remember there was a little turtle, and there was also another.
It was in the basement.
Yes.
In the basement.
Well, that orange thing was in the basement. The turtle was what the detective saw. Because at the bottom of the steps, when the director died, there was a clay statue there as well.
You mean the priest?
No, because the director visited her as she was sick. That was the last place he was, and he was found with his head turned
At the bottom of the stairs.
at the bottom of the stairs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
And the guy was kind of just looking at it, kind of to get a feel of like, okay, so this is where he died. He found a clay statue and found one in the house as well. So he's like, the killer had to have done it in this house.
Okay. I didn't. I guess I overlooked that.
And I think the Pazuzu head could have been, but it made more. I think it made more sense if it was created there. And
Okay. I understand that. So I still don't understand how that ties into finding it in Iraq, but other than just to know that is, because you don't even know for a fact that is a demon statue.
yeah,
I mean, you kind of feel it because there's like dogs fighting and
there's literally evil.
Yeah, you could feel, or they do make you feel that it's been unleashed or something.
My thinking is that, but maybe they released it. Maybe it was just like a, what do they call it? A harbinger. Mm-hmm. Is it a harbinger or harbinger? Because they said he had been on an exorcism before. He was the only guy with experience this side out.
Okay.
I think that might have preceded him doing the exorcism. Like maybe that opened it up and then someone became possessed, whatever.
Yeah.
And that it's just kind of like this precedes,
Yeah.
you know, like the demon possesses people to create these totems or things to honor him, and then
Well, she and you may or may not remember, but she used a Ouija board,
yeah,
and I actually think that after that, people talked about Ouija boards. You could become possessed from that. Mm-hmm. That became a thing because of. I'm sure that that's the only other reference to that I've ever heard, and that was a thing when I was growing up.
yeah, and it was literally just kind of brought into the movie as proof that there was an actual spirit.
Yeah.
So, and that was neat.
Oh, and they used the Ouija board, and it does something. Yeah.
Slides on.
Why did you
its
do
own.
that? She said, I didn't do anything. But yeah, you did. And then you know something's afoot.
Yeah. It's a movie that I think as you realize more and more wrinkles to it, it gets better and better.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I guess you call them Easter eggs now, but there are many in there. And they used subliminal or micro clips of that Pazuzu's true form in the movie, which it's one of the most paused on scenes in a film. It's like, think top 5. You know, with once VCRs came out, people would pause certain parts of films, and that was one that is one of the most paused.
I love the visual of what this evil entity looks like.
Yeah, and they almost went with that for the little girl's appearance. But they decided to go with what they considered like rotting flesh, or what's that? There's a disease that does that.
Syphilis?
Leprosy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and they studied that, like what it looks like. So many different either leprosy or other diseases or whatever, to get what they started to make her look like, progressively worse.
Yeah, well, like everything that they did makeup wise, I thought was like supremely.
It's like that was 20 years ahead of its time. And well, even when the vomit, which as it turns out was a really simple thing that they did, but I had never could understand how they did it. Mm-hmm. It was just a hose that came up from the other side of her face.
Yeah.
But it looked really it was disgusting.
Yeah,
it did the terror and so forth.
Yeah. And if you would have gone more realistic with it, it's like
yeah.
It would have been too much. It was disgusting as is. When she spit on the guy's glasses, I was like, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
And then when she throws up on the secondary priest, I'm like, that's also disgusting.
Yeah. Father Karras and Father Marin.
It was really cool how the room was lit. Mm-hmm. It was cool how it was freezing cold in there.
Yes.
And I loved like the mind games that were played with Karras throughout it.
Don't speak to you do not speak to the demon. Do not address him directly.
That was what made it like even like kind of scarier.
Yeah. There's another scene where she's like that, and she's on her knees and she's like kind of leaning back. And I don't know, there's some, and I think they showed like silhouette of
superimposed on the
Pazuzu or something. It's just like, this is brilliant. This is like
great imagery. She's almost like kind of reaching to the sky.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just in outrageous agony. So that's why, I talk about this movie all the time. I think it's in my opinion, the best. And I understand younger folks like yourself don't see it the way I did. But was so
I
ahead
think
of its time.
The more I watch it, I think that it might continue to go higher and higher.
I mean, and it wasn't a slasher movie. It wasn't cheap scares. It's not jump scares. It's mood, which is far harder to do. I think the book was probably never read it, but it was very well written. Excellent source material. Based
William Peter Blatty
on a semi true story.
Yeah.
About a boy in St. Louis, and
yeah,
I've heard that story and so forth.
Well, the true story from what I have or what I can recollect is about a boy murdering a priest.
All right,
and he was either in a hospital or an asylum.
I think it was a hospital. He was in. My understanding, and he may know more than I do, but he was in a hospital, and I only remember a little bit of the story towards the end where they did the exorcism, and once they felt that they had defeated the demon, they said there was a loud noise and then a smell of roses. That's what they said. You know, the true accounting of it, and I don't know. That just seemed very poignant to me.
Yeah.
You know, almost as if then you knew, you know, that you had defeated the demon and the boy was free. So, but how true it is, I don't know. He was in a hospital. He had an ailment that they couldn't figure out. So,
and apparently he used a bed spring to kill the priest in real life.
You know what? That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I want to read up on that but anyway.
I would like to read The Exorcist and Legion, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you want to reread.
Well, no, Legion I might want to read. Mm-hmm. So we jump it into Exorcist 3, or do you want to?
Well, let's just some last notes.
Round up on
on this one, because how it ends, I was very conflicted. I'm like, I liked Kara so much. Obviously, him sacrificing himself is what makes him such a great character, and makes you like him even more.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is like just a raw deal that they kind of get to, and I understand that's probably what he wanted, but it's like they just kind of get to leave, and it's like this guy literally did sacrifice everything.
Well, I agree with that because you did like that character, but in my opinion, it's the only way it could be. It's the only way it could be. Because when you dance with the devil doesn't change, you do. So it takes a lot of sacrifice in order. No, it wasn't the devil, it was a demon. But to me, that was a perfect ending.
Yeah.
It was a perfect ending.
Well, no, and I don't get it twisted. It did not spoil anything, but like I literally felt emotion that I'm like, oh damn, like this character
that you looked up to and admired.
There was another, you know, and just before, if you have any final thoughts and then your rating, which I feel I have a good indication of what your rating is, but there was one more scene, because I feel like we've mentioned quite a few, but it was an amazing scene where it was after the demon-possessed girl had attacked Sidal, and she was just kind of sitting on the bed, and she looked so like menacing, but also like
Satisfied
and almost as though she was gleaming and like kind of rubbing it in the face.
I know that. I agree. That is exactly. And they nailed that expression.
Yeah, like a self-satisfied / like, because it's trying to emulate a little kid who had done something wrong, and they're like kind of looking at it.
Yeah, mischievous look. It's like, I got it. I did that, and you didn't stop me, and I stole a cookie. Agreed, but in an incredibly sinister way.
Yeah.
But Pazuzu didn't want to be dispossessed, but the demon did want to spar with a priest, or something that personified
kind of as a way
holiness.
to.
But that's what evil wants to do. It wants to pervert goodness. So
choosing a younger woman, child,
Yeah.
choosing someone who upholds all that is holy.
Right. That's what evil wants to do. Evil likes nothing better than to pervert innocence.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that's the little girl, and then to do battle with the priests was, Pizzazzo, I believe, enjoyed it. Now, he didn't want to be dispossessed because you could see his agony on the holy water, and when they start doing the exorcism right. But they want to pervert. Mm-hmm. Like he tried to pervert Karis by showing Karis's mother saying, "Oh, Timmy, how could you do this to me?" Which is one of the real powerful scenes. Incredibly, I mean, everybody feels just guilt seeing that. But
that was like a really great addition into and we kind of mentioned why it was so poignant and why it was so powerful. But to have his mother involved, however briefly she was, it played into it super great, and again just bolstered that character.
yes,
So
it did.
from a standpoint, I can see why you feel like these characters are so deep, and I think before, and we'll rate this, but just something that I want to bring up while it's on my mind is I think some of the things that 3 might lack is because they use different actors to be characters from this one.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Because one of the detectives, the guy with the mustache who was talking to Karis, he's like, "Do you know any priest who could be doing this?" Mm-hmm. I think that is supposed to be the detective in 3. But I'm assuming that actual actor was either retired or maybe deceased.
Oh, that's Eli Wallach. Eli Wallach was in the first one, and George C. Scott.
He was good.
They're both good actors. They're both very good actors. Eli Wallach was a character actor and was in tons of stuff in the 70s.
Yeah.
George C. Scott's known for doing Patton, in that iconic role. Mm-hmm. I don't know. He was done other things too, but I think that was his real claim to fame.
But anywho, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I really I think it's just something where I gotta rewatch it maybe a few more times before I'm like, I do think it has the potential to be like what I would consider a perfect horror movie, though.
And I completely understand it. And coming from different generations and so forth, so we're going to have a different take or look at it. To me, it is the standard. It is the gold standard. Because it sets mood. It's a better movie.
Yeah.
Like if you say Friday the 13th, and there's times, and I rewatched Friday the 13th not too long ago, and it is a poor movie. And as far as movie goes, or horror movies go, it isn't bad. The Exorcist is a great movie that happens to be a horror movie.
Yeah.
And there's themes to it that are deeper than just, pure horror. There's guilt, there's science versus religion, there's other layers to it. And it is the standard, in my opinion.
Battling with faith.
Yes, battling evil, good versus evil, true good versus evil. Because a lot of movies do that. Like Westerns are kind of known for good versus evil. And this is the ultimate innocence of a little girl and the Catholic Church versus a demon from hell.
And I also think there's something to be said about the going through puberty, like a change as you are growing. And I kind of think that's part of it too. And it's like she was at this age where she's becoming more mature.
A woman.
And she's not quite as, I don't know if innocent's the right word, but you know what I mean? She's not a child anymore.
Well, she's approaching that, but she hasn't started to. Because if you see her behavior in the beginning,
she's
it's
very
childish.
much childlike.
It's childlike.
But she's starting to realize more mature dynamics of relationships, like with her mother.
Well,
And she's
there's-
starting to read magazines as well, and
Yeah, that's a good point. I never saw that. Another thing, and this is completely irrelevant to the point, but this is what happens in real life. Her father is not involved in her life at all, and the mother
Yes.
resents it incredibly, a great deal. But it has nothing to do with the plot at all.
I felt like that was just kind of an added little wrinkle as to what an added stressor on the daughter, and that I think she felt like guilt about this.
Maybe.
That she was creating this
I felt it was more on the mother than the daughter.
an added stressor on the mother as she's dealing with this and
Yes.
doesn't have someone to
To
lean
share.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be it too. I also felt like the daughter, because on her birthday, she was listening into the phone call as her mother was like going ballistic.
Yeah.
And I think she was like, "Oh, like I'm making them fight."
Yeah. That's a good point. But I honestly think it's just they just added to the realism. That it may maybe it had some very minor influence on the overall plot or the characters. In my opinion, it adds realism because they just had things like, regardless of what's going on in the horror movie, people are people and they have everyday events that they deal with, obstacles or whatever, and to just not have them, people subconsciously notice that.
And there's things going on.
In The
There's
Exorcist.
there's action going on, and have that ability.
They had that party.
Yeah.
And another, weird thing is that the actor who died was accusing the housekeeper, the butler, whatever he was, of being a Nazi. That's just it's completely unrelated.
Yeah, like there has
But it's
nothing
just-
to do with
right,
the
right.
plot, but it's an added
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That this guy's very like loose-lipped and just says whatever's on his mind. And,
Right. And he was harassing him the
Yeah.
entire evening.
But
And it
that's
was-
something that's kind of believable. Like maybe we don't know people who are that rambunctious or that outrageous, but you've met people in line with
Well,
that.
but remember, he's in show business, so
They're even more so.
Yeah, right.
That would be our interpretation of what we would expect.
Yeah, of people in show business.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have a negative thing to say about this.
Well,
movie.
I obviously don't either. It's near perfect film, and like I said, the standard.
So
It's
you would
creating mood. If you can create mood and create mood throughout a movie and have music that complements it in a that type of voice, and just many other things. Good actors, well written, everything. Excellent movie.
I'm right there with you. Now, The Exorcist III, which
To the man who was possessed, what is your name? And he answered, Legion. Who are you? I am no one.
Damien.
I believe in death.
I believe in pain. I believe in cruelty and corruption, you son of a bitch! He's inside with us! He will never get away! His pain won't end!
is, I think, the best sequel amongst the bunch. It's the best direction to take it. It doesn't immediately let you know that it's Karras' story, for lack of a better term, that they're
Right.
kind of carrying on with, because we expect him to have been dead, that he had his last rites given to him at the end of the first one. This is 17 years later. I think in the
15.
movie they say 15, but in real time, I think it's closer to 17.
Okay.
Oh, no, well, actually, I guess it depends on release dates, actually, because it might actually
But
filming wise too.
in the fictional world, it was 15.
15. It's taken place at the beginning. We get someone walking down the streets of Georgetown again, the same setting as the first one, and seems to walk past the first murder victim. And it seems to be the reemergence of a serial killer who had passed away 15 years prior as well.
Correct. The Gemini Killer.
Which is obviously kind of a take on the Zodiac.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's right. So Geminis are... I don't understand why it's the Gemini Killer. Geminis are the twins.
I think
I
he
see
was
no
just a
significance
Gemini.
That man in the isolation tank. You know, the one you looked in on. The police brought him in here 15 years ago. The thing is, Lieutenant, he says he's the Gemini Killer.
Are they calling these Gemini killings in the papers? You must get them to do that, Lieutenant. It's important.
The Gemini Killer's been dead for 15 years.
Clearly some religious connection. What is it? I don't know what I'm looking for.
Whatsoever.
I think he was just a Gemini, and they're like, well, people are familiar with the Zodiac, and that's a Zodiac sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it rolls off the tongue well, too.
Yeah, it does. I agree. Sagittarius Killer would not sound as well.
Yeah. Sagittarius serial killer, now.
Perhaps.
I liked the detective, and I liked the priest, and I thought the dialogue was kind of snappy. I thought they had good repartee between them.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It just... So they're selling that they have been friends and they comfort each other every anniversary of the death of Karras, because they both were very close to Father Karras.
It has to be this is what do they call it? They're bringing back up a character from the first to the second.
Okay, yeah.
And it's played by a different actor, as we established before, because that guy offered to go to the movies with Karras. And this guy's thing is he likes going to movies as well.
Oh, that's right.
And this is
I forgot
a
about that,
priest
isn't it?
who just likes movies going with him to movies.
Right.
So they have that added, that's kind of the basis of their relationship.
Okay, I forgot about that because I do remember the original detective in the first one. There was something about he gets free movie passes or whatever.
But he just basically says, I'm going into the movie, and they let him go.
He just goes in, yeah. So they build upon that, and we've differed. We've spoken ahead of time about our feelings on this movie, and it's completely...
For all the things that
different.
you thought were corny or unrealistic or whatever, I thought was engaging and intriguing.
At points, sometimes a relationship, I mentioned the carp. Carp is not an edible fish that I am aware of at all. I mean, because we have carp in the Allegheny River around where we live, and no one would even ever eat that. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, maybe this is a different type of carp.
I think that adds to it, because you have to kill it right before you eat it. And that's why it was supposedly in the bathtub.
No,
I don't think it.
It was in the bathtub because it's he said it was a bottom feeder, so you're kind of getting the toxins out of it. Yeah.
Oh, see, I thought that
or maybe you're right. Or
I thought that was just a joke. I didn't actually think there was a
carp in the bathtub.
Yeah, I thought he was just like a amusing,
untrue anecdote.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was telling the truth, but it could have been
because it's just so weird.
Odd.
Yeah.
But then there was other characters, like his daughter was nothing, his wife was nothing, his mother-in-law
was just weird.
Yeah, she was odd, but nothing
Just
that
kinda like a
added to
nag.
it. It's like she should have just been a single man because although the daughter's mentioned,
Well, it plays a part because there's a threat on his daughter's life. I think the joke was, or at least, and I might be reading way too into this, but I thought that the mother-in-law was about as, not attractive, but like appealing to spend time with as a carp in your bathtub. He's like, I'm avoiding.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it was just a minor attempt at humor that hit or
land,
miss.
yeah.
Well, I mean, for some maybe it did, some it didn't.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue of George C. Scott and some of the emotional responses of him just seemed unnatural or wrong.
Well, because he was,
and he's a good actor, but he's more of a, when he did Patton, and I'm going off on a tangent here, he was the perfect Patton because he was domineering and boisterous or whatever. So I don't know if he was the right person to play this part or not.
or he was supposed to kind of be like on the edge at all times.
Of being,
well, just on edge, not on the edge, but like he was like kind of very stressed and.
Yeah, but other times he didn't seem as stressed. I don't know. He's a good actor. Like I said, we differ on this movie so much. There's another that I've spoke about many, many times. The prequel, Father Marin, the origin, which is, there's two versions of it. I don't know why or how they did it, but they did. And the one version is much better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we won't go into that. I just think that's a better movie because the main actor in it is just very good. So,
I really liked the dialogue between the detective and the Gemini when he would come out of Karis.
now the actor Brad Dourif, who, and his claim to fame, what he's best known for, at least at that time, he played Billy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And it was
Oh, okay.
brilliant in that. Not only that, he was also in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
Is he?
Remember Saruman? Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know what he was. He was with Saruman. He was like his accomplice or whatever. And he's a good actor in certain types of roles. He was good in this. He was excellent as Billy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He was, like I said, he was very good in The Two Towers. And there's a famous line that I remember, and I actually can't even remember the line. It's a line where he sees they're not orcs, but the new life form that Saruman creates from orcs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Like the super orcs.
yeah, they're Uruk-hai, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And he sees them, and he's like, his eyes are real watery, and he just says something like, "I had no idea," when he was talking about how incredible the sight of 10,000 of those warriors were as he saw them for the first time, because he maybe didn't believe Saruman could do such a thing, and when he saw it, I mean, it was just a very one line in a movie, but so he has that effect. He can do those types of roles that Brad Dourif. And that's who he was speaking with. He was talking to the detective. No, why did they have in that guy's cell, high security cell, right? He's chained up. They have that machine. Why is that in there? For what
because
possible
Karis
purpose?
is normally comatose.
Okay. Well, he's not.
Well,
now.
they're trying to make sure. Well, not when anyone else is around, he is comatose.
Okay. Well, you don't need the machine.
Well, they're just trying to monitor brainwaves to see if he's making progress or not.
Well, he was comatose for 15 years, according to the story. So all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but he awakens. But you wouldn't, in a high security cell for someone who's criminally mentally ill or at least mentally. Well, he wasn't criminally meant because they didn't know at the time. You don't have the machine in there. You have nothing in there that could harm that person, and have just a machine
it's kind
sitting
of
there.
something that it just is like to say like like a tie where it's like his brainwaves went up
During
while
this period
one
of
of
time.
his killings happened.
But
That's really the only
But what is the killing? He's just I mean, to be honest,
he could have been thrown out of the movie and it wouldn't be missed necessarily.
Yeah, I just thought it was, too contrived and obvious to have that stupid thing in there. They can mention the fact, that his brain waves are off the charts. You don't need the actual machine in the cell. Stuff like that bothers me, because I notice minutia in movies, and it's like, what's the point of that? But to be perfectly honest, okay, so this is a demon who's possessed a serial killer.
It's a legion of demons.
Okay, all right.
It's the serial killer
And I know that's
spirit.
why they call it legion, because it's more than one, it's many. I am many. That's, But anyway, okay, so you're talking about an entity more evil and sinister than one demon, Pazazu, right? Mm-hmm. So he's just a serial killer. I mean, Dahmer's worse than this guy was. Ted Bundy was twice as bad. I mean, there's a truly just evil people that weren't possessed by legions of demons.
He was never possessed. He was aided by Pazazu to
do what he did?
Embody this person, or possess this person.
Karis.
Yes.
So the Gemini died, his soul is transferred into Karis.
And I think Pazazu and him both needed each other to like redevelop the brain to be able to.
That's right, because he did say his mind was mush and everything like that. It's just, where's the evil? I mean,
they were doing
The Exorcist. This is The Exorcist. I mean, like I said, the Dahmer story is more sinister than this is. No, he kills people, cuts off their...
sacrilegious killings.
Did he eat people? Dahmer did. Dahmer kept heads in his refrigerator.
This guy would keep fingers.
Oh, okay.
And he would,
Did you ever hear some of the stuff Bundy did?
He would crucify.
And the one time it was.
He would keep heads and fingers.
Where?
Well, like when he was a killer. I don't know.
When he was Gemini. Okay. And see, that's and I don't mean to be overly critical, but it's The Exorcist. It's supreme evil. Supreme. It's not kind of evil. It's not Dr. Evil. It's evil personified. The epitome of evil.
It killed a local boy who was in the police club.
Okay.
So it was someone who was a potential to be like a
redeemed.
Not even redeemed, just maybe a pillar of the neighborhood. The boy.
I know.
A priest.
Okay, granted. I know, and you like it, and I don't mean to come down on it. It's
a nurse.
Yeah.
Like
cuts
people
her head
who
off.
are generally good.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, what did Pazazu do in the first one? He killed a priest.
But only because he was stopped. He possessed the girl
what
to
was
become
stopped?
a living demon on Earth.
In this
he wouldn't
one,
have stopped.
This one caused a priest to become that.
I don't. I didn't feel it. There was no mood at all. There was one decent scene.
The ending was able to kind of replicate what the ending of the first one was able to.
I mean, obviously we, different views on this. I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, from my perspective, I didn't feel it at all. I felt Exorcist 1 deeply. This one was very shallow. This wasn't even it was a fair movie, and horror-wise, like I said, there was a scene. Otherwise, now at the end they had some cool imagery coming through the floor and so forth. Mm-hmm. And the one priest with the white hair had hair turn white from whatever happened in Africa. He wasn't even a character. I mean, he was a cartoon character walking through this movie. So you see him a couple times, and all of a sudden he comes in to do an exorcism, and he dies. That's it. That's his contribution.
Well, he is able to help just enough
at the end of okay, he does something at the end. But it wasn't developed in any way at all.
I mean, that's kind of Sydow-esque. Although Sydow had the beginning.
You feel Sydow. You feel him as a person. Granted, no, but I mean, he's the main protagonist. He's the protagonist.
The first one.
Absolutely. Well, him and Karis combined, granted, but he personifies.
I think it's Karis all the way. I don't even think it's the girl.
But then we're calling an exorcist. So the movie's called The Exorcist. The Exorcist is Max von Sydow. Karis only helps.
He was more or less a catalyst to push Karis to make the final sacrifice than anything.
I felt
when he
way
saw
more depth
what the
of him.
capability and that, okay, this young girl is becoming a murderer because of this, and her redemption is nearing a point of no return.
Okay,
he's
granted,
like,
right.
I will take me. He's fully able to accept it.
I know, and you love Karis in that movie, and I do too. But Sydow, he was a complete character, even though they don't really delve into that. It's just because he can act so well. He's a great actor.
I completely agree.
Exorcist.
I've seen him in movies where he actually gets more time to develop, and and I think he is a really good actor. I mean, he's been in some really good stuff. He's in Tarkovsky Tarkovsky movies and Bergman films, but I just feel like it's kind of equally not as developed. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but the same criticism for 3, it is kind of close to that, although he does get more screen time in the first one. I just, and I don't think that they are on the same level.
No.
3 and 1 are clearly in different leagues, but I think this one keeps enough from the original and becomes uniquely its own. And I thought it was good. I thought it was very good.
But when he came in to do the exorcism, it's like he just wandered in. And there's another. Well, I'm going to say this.
They did do. There was certain times where they just time spans were jumped, and they really didn't explain it very well.
There's one where George C. Scott sees blood coming out from underneath the door, and nothing ever happens. I mean, he doesn't even open the door. I mean, all these people are dying at this hospital, and he sees that, and that's in the room where all the catatonic old folks are. Mm-hmm. It's a bigger room, and art and so forth, and he sees that. And it's unexplained. It's like they cut a part out and forgot that you can't just leave that hanging there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I know, I don't want to, I despised, I do not like that movie. I did not think it was good. There's only been one that has earned the right to have exorcism in its name, as far part of that universe. Mm-hmm. And that was the prequel, and I don't know the name of that. In prequel, they buried a church for some reason. Mm-hmm. And then they go into it, and so there was a massacre somewhere in Africa, and then underneath it is a church, and they're like, why would they bury a Catholic church? And then you find out why, and there's some intrigue and so forth. Like I said, the main character is very good. He's tempted by a woman, and he's also, and I know I'm going to another movie, but he was a priest during the Second World War, and he was in a village that was invaded by Nazis, and the Nazis just massacred the village.
Mm-hmm.
And he was exposed to incredible cruelty. So that's his backstory, and he's in Africa because a lot of those guys became disillusioned after the war, and he strongly considered leaving the priesthood, and so there's like depth to it. There's no depth to this. I mean, George C. Scott, whatever, I don't know. His wife, mother-in-law, just seemed like some crazy old woman, or like goofy old woman, and his daughter, whom I thought would have something to do with the movie, had nothing. She was a dancer. That's all you know about it, and she loved to dance.
Yeah, it really kind of was just the detective got the majority of the screen time.
Yeah.
It was really... I see your criticisms. It's just like, I for whatever reason, I might have came into it just wanting to enjoy it more.
Maybe, yeah, I understand.
Because I came to like this movie because I heard about that jump scare being amazing. Watched that scene a few times, and I was like, wow, that's like pretty
It was
good.
cool, and there was mood prior to it.
Yeah, that's how you
Built
set up
mood.
suspense and
Exactly.
a sense of doom and that something is about to unfold. And in the ending, I liked the Gemini killer a lot. I thought it was a decent way to completely wrap up Karras' story and also the detective story.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I
guess that's what it was, though, too, in a way. It was like the final conclusion for both those two characters from the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad, too, because that detective kind of did just get glossed over.
Yeah.
It like he was only kind of mentioned in the first one just to keep it realistic. Where they're like, look, people are dying. You can't just...
Yeah. Something's happening.
Yeah.
He, in the first half of it, he was way more prominent. In the second half, he's barely...
Yeah.
Yeah, he barely has any impact on anything. So, and it's switched, to first, and then they went through the medical issues or, discover or whatever they try to figure out what was wrong with her. But then he disappeared. To the very, very end, right? He's in the very end scene. Not the end scene, the death scene.
He's there, like, right before the priest jumps out the window.
Yeah.
And that's another just really great thing where it's like that priest, whether he had time to really put this into perspective or not, but he was going down for all those murders by doing what he did.
Yeah.
That's the only... It's like... Because the guy had the hunch that it was a priest, and he said it had to have been a large man, a large physically fit man.
I never thought of that. I mean that I never ever thought of that.
And it's like, there's just this little girl. He was the only one else in the room.
She could not have done it.
And this is like not only his admission of guilt, but what he did to deal with that.
Okay. I didn't. I never even thought of that. So that's good to know that because that makes sense too. So it wraps everything up at the end. Otherwise, there'd be like, Otherwise, it'd be like, well,
why
there still was a murder.
The girl,
there's a murderer.
Go?
Yeah.
And he, like basically kind of continuing that motive and like his purity of heart, literally sacrifices himself again for good. But the one other thing thematically that I liked, and it was way more on the nose in this one as opposed to Exorcist III, that the detective is like, my faith is based on I've seen all these negative things, and for these things to exist, there has to be another side.
A goodness.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So it was kind of like his internal struggle, good versus evil, inside the detective.
And I know it's not going to turn your rating, but
no.
For me, there was enough there to cling on to like enjoy it throughout.
Well, I mean that's the key of any movie. I just didn't think it was great. I mean, I thought it was, I'd say average, but
I see. Yeah, there was certain things I like, and I thought the script was good, and I think you really don't agree with that. And I was like, you know what? And I thought, look, I wasn't surprised that Blatty, who's obviously an author and writes fairly well,
yeah.
wasn't surprised that the script was well written, but I was surprised what he was able to do with the imagery. And I was like, I was damn impressed with not only, like, look, that, like, and I've said it time and time again, but that jump scare was so good. And you had to have the pacing down right. If you rush that, you're gonna freaking blow it.
Absolutely.
And in the ending, like, look, it was almost cartoonish. It was very, very, very over the top. But that was like, that's kind of what some people needed in the 90s as opposed to the 70s, where it's like they need those strong visuals
Yeah.
to kind of like remember at the end of a movie.
Yeah.
Exorcist had it with the girl in Pazuzu.
Right.
But this is like, you know, it was less like here's the mask of a scary thing. Instead, it's like, this is like, we're in hell. You know, they were being surrounded by it as opposed to engulfed by it.
Mm-hmm.
Or not engulfed, but possessed by it.
Okay. So, what is your rating there, sir?
I gave it 3.5
out of 5.
Out of 5. Yeah.
So that's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Very good.
I prefer.
Give it a
I'd
6.
use the 10 scale. I'd probably give it a 6. I mean, there's so many good movies.
For me, an average movie is like, this doesn't do anything for me.
That's what this was to me. That
It tried. It swung on a lot of different things, I thought. And it's a polarizing movie, is I think the best way I could describe it. Because those attempts it makes are either
you buy it or you don't.
Yeah, you're either gonna really like it or you're gonna be like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can get rubbed the wrong way, and I get like that too. There's a lot of movies where I'm like, yeah, this doesn't land with me.
Yeah.
But
it's contrived. It's not organic.
I would much rather something go for something and fail than there's a lot of movies that will just play it safe, and by the end you're like, why? And
why did I bother?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with trying for things that may not land. So I always attempt that. I think if you're you have to try to push the envelope in some ways as a movie. Maybe not. Sometimes you could just technically a good movie that isn't necessarily anything. It's just well done. You know, dialogue's good, everything's good, but it's not like necessarily a completely new concept or plot.
Yeah.
So I don't. But it was based on the book. I wouldn't mind. I won't read the book, but I wish I had, just to have an idea of what. But I'm sure it was very similar to. So maybe if it's just well written, maybe I would like it. Otherwise, I'd be like, this is just the movie, and it's not that great.
Yeah. So next week we're gonna be doing Hellraiser, the original, Beetlejuice, and Hellraiser the reboot.
Okay, well that gives us. Beetlejuice is a very, very good movie. It's not a horror movie, obviously, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's just a very Halloween.
Yeah. And so, I haven't watched the reboot yet, but I'm going to.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I've heard really good reviews.
I read good things about it. Yeah, so
people are hyped about it. The original's really good. This one.
The original was a great concept. It just wasn't terribly well done. It was done low.
I can't
budget.
and I'm excited to talk about it because hopefully in a week's time I can put my thoughts into words. But I could never. I liked Hellraiser 1. I could just never. I'm like, I wanted more of. I don't know what, but I wanted more in a certain direction or whatever. It's just like, because, like, those characters are so well designed. The story is mysterious. And,
Right.
like, you're like, you want to know more.
Yeah, yeah. And they never really tell you a lot more. I mean, the actual Hellraiser, the Hell's Priest, was a World War. It was not necessarily a World War One veteran, but he was a veteran of some war. He was English because you could tell by his thing, and he fought somewhere in Africa. So I just
That would
always
have to be 2 then, right?
Pardon?
That would have to be 2.
Hellraiser 2?
No, World War II. And that's
I don't know.
That's Hellraiser
Maybe,
2.
but you have to. The English had a lot of colonies. There was a lot of wars that or maybe it wasn't even a war. It was just like an uprising, and because they had colonies all over the world.
Yeah.
So he's like a proper English goes to battle,
Right.
and I feel that he is disillusioned. So, and then he's looking for
A
something.
respite from.
Not a respite, just that life, the meaning of just everyday life isn't enough. So he's seeking out, and that's what the box is. It's like ultimate pleasures, ultimate pain. Extreme versions of either one.
Yeah, I think there's a quote from the book, and I think you've read both Scarlet Gospels and Hellbound Heart.
I didn't read Hellbound Heart.
Oh, well, that's what Hellraiser is based on.
Yeah.
That it was like I as a mortal, then I'm butchering this quote so
Paraphrasing.
bad, yeah. But is like I made the grave mistake of interpreting their values of pleasure to coincide with mine.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the Cenobites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, essentially, they're just demons.
Yeah.
And there's a quote that always kind of intrigued me about that as a character. Is that we are beyond your experience. We're otherworldly to the point where we're ununderstandable.
Yeah. We transcend human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that makes them very intriguing.
I'm excited.
Likewise.
Well, that is all from us. Big Chungus, you want to say? Well, Dad Man, you want to say adios to the
listeners? Thank you for listening.
Yep.
I don't want to say we're great at this, but we're pretty damn close. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you. We will catch you on the flippity flip. Bye, y'all.